Okay. Well, moving on now. After weeks of protests that have seen over 100 dead in Yemen, the government made a deal with the Shia Houthi group to form a more inclusive government after major institutions were occupied by protesters in the capital, Sana'a. Sarah CA has this report.
A UN-brokered peace deal between the Shia Houthis and the Yemeni government was yesterday agreed. This agreement was signed while Houthis took control of government buildings and a state radio and TV station in the capital, Sana'a. Yesterday's agreement calls for the current government to rule in a caretaker role until a new administration is formed next month after consultations with all political parties. Yemen's President Abdurabu Mansour Hadi urged all sides to abide by the deal. The agreement aims to address Houthi discontent and a spate of protests this month that threaten UN-backed efforts to stabilise the country and stem al-Qaeda activity. Hours before the signing ceremony, Prime Minister Mohammed Bassindwa submitted his resignation to President Mansour Hadi, saying he hoped the move would help consensus emerge from the agreement. But his resignation has added to the uncertainty in Sana'a, where more than 100 people have been killed in 4 days of clashes between the Houthis and troops loyal to an army general Houthis have long accused of following a view that brands Shias as heretics. After the accord was signed, military police began taking back government buildings seized by the Houthis, though it was unclear how much control the group were prepared to cede. Witnesses at the ceremony said the Houthi representatives refused to sign part of the agreement, which calls for the state to take control of areas seized by the Houthis and to return weapons captured during the fighting. The accord calls for the creation of a new national unity government within 1 month, which will bring in the Houthis and mostly reverse an unpopular decision to increase fuel prices.
Well, with me to provide some perspective on this, we have Massoud Shadjareh, Chair of the Islamic Human Rights Commission. Welcome to the programme, Massoud. So what do you make of the extent of the unrest in Yemen, which was our lead story there? Is this a mass protest by the Shia?
Yes, it is a mass protest, and is as a result of what is unfortunately very dominant in that region, is a lack of empowerment of people from different sections of the community. And indeed, we've been here already once before when there was an uprising and, part of the Arab Spring. And there were a lot of promises were made, but many of those have been undermined. And the reality is that, unfortunately, most of these Arab nations, they don't empower their own people. And so therefore, we have got these conflicts, internal conflicts all the time. And, and we know not just in that region, anywhere else, communities and minorities or majorities need to be addressed their legitimate needs and aspiration. Otherwise, it creates further problem. And, there is a lack of understanding by most of these regimes that, they need to keep their family together. And the only way to keep the family of Yemen together is to address their legitimate needs and aspiration. And I hope that this time around, we will actually see some real solutions rather than, creating conflict and fueling conflict because what United States wants or indeed other powers outside are dictating.
Well, you say that this, has its roots back in the Arab revolutions, but the events in Yemen at that time were different from, there was a relatively clear-cut outcome in Tunisia and a relatively clear outcome in Egypt, whatever has happened since. But in Yemen, there was this kind of, Salah, President Salah, the dictator, was removed, and then one of his henchmen took over. Is that because, if you like, it was a sort of half-baked revolution?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the real issues was never addressed. This is why, Yemen is got different communities as a part of the society, and those communities have never received their right share of empowerment and say in the running of the government. What we had was a half-baked, as you said, and we had another sort of personality replacing and keeping the same system.
Some see Salah's hand, the ex-dictator's hand, still in this. Is that conspiracy theory, or is there any basis for it?
No, there is basis for it. I mean, as much as there is Mubarak's hand is still in Egypt, Salah's hand is still in Yemen. And, the reality is if you don't remove the system, then, you just remove the personality, then, same and more of the same thing unfortunately happens. But I really hope that this time we will really get a proper solution.
Do you think the deal now that's been made, do you think it will be honoured, or is it going to break down?
Well, I think at the moment there is no choice except honouring this deal, and I just hope that all the sort of there will be sort of emergence of interest, and we'll see end of this conflict. Yemen is going to be crushed if these conflicts continues, and people of Yemen really need and deserve better, and we need to have a real representative and empowerment of the ordinary people in Yemen.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that, Massoud. And before we go for a break, let's